All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for February the 5th. We've got a mailbag edition for you. No print mailbag this week because of all the different things going on. But we wanted to answer some of your questions in the lead up to Super Bowl 59. We are now just 4 days away from the Eagles and the Chiefs meeting in the big game and the end of the 2024 NFL season. So we're going to get to three questions right here. First question is from David Manuel at David Man Tweet. Do you think the running back position will increase in value after this year's Super Bowl, assuming Saquon has an amazing game? First of all, I would not assume that Saquon has an amazing game based on how the Chiefs have played running backs over the years in the playoffs. It has been 4 years. This is a running back. He even had 85 yards against the Chiefs defense. So the idea that Saquon's going to go for 150, 200, maybe it happens, but I don't think it's any sure thing. As for what Saquon's year will do for the value of the running back position. Remember, this is separate from the game he has on Sunday. I think the attitude towards the position will change to some degree, and all you have to do is go back to look at last year's running back market. One of the things that you could look at in March and April of last year, without even knowing the way this season was going to play out, is the teams that signed the running backs at the top of the market. It was the Packers with Josh Jacobs. It was the Ravens with Derrick Henry, and then, of course, the Eagles with Saquon Barkley. Those three teams know what they're doing. The Eagles, Ravens, and Packers are all consistent contenders. So the fact that they would go in got my attention at the time. And here's what each one of those three teams was thinking. The running back position has been devalued for about 20 years now. So it's 20 years of that position getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down. And eventually, when the value of a position keeps getting knocked down that way, it's going to wind up becoming a value. It's going to wind up becoming a distressed asset. And that's what a great veteran running back is now. And if you want to look at where the numbers stack up, it's, the question really is, what are we even talking about? The contract that Saquon Barkley got with the Eagles was roughly equal to what Darnell Mooney got to be the number 3 receiver in Atlanta. If you're paying for Barkley what you're paying for Mooney, all due respect to Mooney, who had a really good year in Atlanta, and this guy's touching the ball 300 times in the year and rushing for 2,000 yards, it almost doesn't matter if you've got to pay the price a year or two from now, paying more for a running back after he goes over the hill than you maybe would like to. So I think that's what's happened, is that the value of the running back position got knocked down so many times that eventually it became a good value to go and get a running back. Now, what I would say in addition to that is that you do have to be in the right spot to go and make a splash move on a running back. Again, all three of those teams, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Packers, won playoff games after the 2023 season. So all three of those teams were in a position to contend. Conversely, the teams that let them go, the Giants in New York with Saquon, the Titans in Tennessee with Derrick Henry, and of course the Raiders with Josh Jacobs there in Vegas, all three of those teams are rebuilding. May not have made as much sense for them to go all in on a running back when by the time you're good enough to compete for a championship or even hope to contend for a championship, that guy might be on the downside of his career. So yes, I think it'll have an effect. It was a rare instance that you had three guys at that level become available at one position all at the same time. And I do think for a true contender, a team that's in the position that the Eagles, the Ravens, or the Packers were in last offseason, it could have an effect. Our second question for this week is from Tom Marshall. That's at A. Red Zanak. Could a veteran quarterback be used in a trade for Myles Garrett, maybe Stafford or Cousins, for example? I don't mind the question, Tom, and I think it's a fair one to ask. I think the problem here is if you look at each of these, if you look at the names that would be available, most of them are too expensive or would just become available via release. So when you've already got as much invested in Deshaun Watson as you've got invested in Deshaun Watson and his contract is fully guaranteed, are you going to go in another $40 to $50 million on Matthew Stafford for 2025, assuming Stafford would want some sort of contract adjustment? Now you could be talking about an investment in the quarterback position that's approaching $100 million. So for that reason, I don't think it works there. With Cousins, I like the idea of it. Again, he's got the connection. He played for Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota in 2018, 2019. Stefanski was actually his position coach. But it doesn't even make sense for the Falcons to include him or the Browns to acquire him in a trade because there's the feeling he's going to be released anyway. So could it work out that way? Maybe. I think in that case he would just be a throw-in in a trade. I think, when we're talking about what Myles Garrett's going to go for, it's probably 2 first-round picks and then some. And I don't think adding a Cousins into a trade like that really would affect much unless you were willing to take on almost all of his salary. Question number 3 is from David Cromlau. That's at David Crom 59. Do you get the sense the Titans would highly consider a slight trade down from number 1 overall to number 3 overall with the Giants? David, I think that all depends on how you see the quarterbacks. I think Cam Ward's got a chance to go in the top 5 range. I think Shedeur Sanders probably has an outside chance to go in that range. A lot of people don't see Shedeur Sanders physically as a top 5 type of prospect. Cam Ward's got a little more physical ability. There are a lot of questions to be answered with him. I mean, to put it into context, I think all 3 of the guys who went 1, 2, 3 last year, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May, would go first overall this year. I think maybe even the next 3 would go above the quarterbacks this year. And so I think to have the urgency, to create the urgency for somebody to come up and trade for the number 1 overall pick, you have to have somebody who's truly in love with one of the quarterbacks. And my question would be whether or not that's going to happen between now and the end of April. My guess would be it doesn't. My guess would be the Titans sit there, and if you're listening to what the new GM, Mike Borgonzi, what Chad Brinker have said, they want a generational player. To me, there are 2 guys in this year's class that fit that description, and neither of those guys is a quarterback. It's Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State, and it's Travis Hunter, the 2-way Heisman winner from the University of Colorado. So the idea of trading down, I think the Titans would love to trade down. And if they could trade down from 1 to 3 and know the team picking first overall is going to take a quarterback, then great. Then they're going to wind up with Carter or Hunter and a bunch of picks on top of it. I just don't know that it's realistic based on where the quarterback class is right now. Again, maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, we're talking about this whole thing a little bit differently. There are teams there in the top 10 that are very needy at the quarterback position. The Browns need one. The Giants need one. The Raiders need one. So maybe one guy gets hot, and now all of a sudden there's a market for that first overall pick. I would just say, based on the way that I've heard scouts and teams talk about these quarterback prospects over the course of the last 6 months or so, right now as we sit here on February 5th, it seems unlikely to me. All right. We will be back next week with another mailbag, with another print mailbag, with another video mailbag. I also have at least one more Breer report coming for you here from Radio Row this week. When we come back here again, we'll be previewing the Chiefs and the Eagles, digging a little deeper into that matchup. Again, we have at least one Breer report, may have more than one than that. Keep it tuned here at SI.com and on all of our social channels. We'll see you guys soon.